What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at Tottenham versus Southampton. We're going to try and get the Manchester City game up as well later, but for right now, let's focus on this. So Tottenham with a new manager of Ryan Mason, 29 years of age, his first game in charge of Tottenham since the sacking of Jose Mourinho. So we'll look at how they tactically set up. And if you're interested in tactics, my book would be a great option for you. Check it out in the description below. I post a link as well as a link to the membership option. All members receive a copy of my book for free. And check out Keyframe, which is how I made the second half of this video, all in the description below with links. So moving forward with the video, we can look at how Tottenham set up with Toby Alderweireld and Eric Dyer. And they went with the back four, and Reguilón and Aurier were the fullbacks. Højbjerg and Ndombele as the double pivot. Mora and Lo Celso occupied more advanced midfield roles, but Mora was the number 9, just dropped into a deeper position as Kane would. Lo Celso, the attacking midfielder, Bale and Son were the wingers. And Southampton lined up as expected in a 4-2-2-2 with Ings and Adams leading the front two. So now, moving forward in the first phase of Tottenham's build-up, they played with relatively deep fullbacks, and this kind of aided into Southampton's press because Ings and Adams would control the double pivot when Ndombele would drop, giving Tottenham the wide areas, which is what Southampton's used to, and then they were able to go and press into the wide areas and isolate possession. So now with good central control, Southampton maintained their shape, and when Aurier was in possession, he would almost create an off-centered back three, and when they would shift, they would numerically match and outnumber Tottenham through the center. Now some wide rotations. What saw Son come into the half space as more of an attacking offset midfielder, with Reguilón occupying the wide area. When Reguilón would stay deeper, Son would go higher and Reguilón would go narrow. And the most effective setup was Højbjerg as the single pivot, and Ndombele went higher with Son wide, and it just created more controlled passing options. When Southampton were in possession, they built from the back with a very direct approach. Many times Walcott or one of the wide midfielders would go into the wide area, making rooms for Adams, and then releasing the fullback, giving them a wide progression route. The main system for them in the midfield third was Ward-Prowse would drop outside of the two center backs. That would see Walcott through the half space and Walker-Peters advancing down the width. And this particular rotation gave Tottenham a lot of trouble defensively, and they struggled with this when Southampton were in possession and were able to control and execute this rotation with a free player between the lines. Now for the keyframe aspect of the video. Moving on into keyframe now, we'll look at Tottenham in possession. And first off, Tottenham often built with 3 players in their first line of build-up, and this included Serge Aurier as the fullback, the right fullback. You'd often play much deeper, creating this 3-man off-centered back 3, and then it saw Højbjerg and Ndombele as the double pivot, and then advanced was Lo Celso, Lucas Moura, and occasionally Son would come between the lines, but he was very goal-oriented in his movement, so he occupied an advanced midfield role sparingly. Reguilón was slightly higher to create asymmetry within Tottenham's build-up shape, but Tottenham were relatively ineffective in possession of the ball and could not exploit the Southampton defensive setup, and Southampton set up in their usual 4-2-2-2 with Walcott as one of the 2 advanced midfielders who would then go and press. And one thing about the 2 wide players of Southampton is they naturally start a bit higher, which is why they're a 4-2-2 rather than a 4-4-2. So by starting higher, it just naturally gave them an easier option to then go and press Tottenham, and with their numerical superiority between the lines, Southampton were very in control for most of the game out of possession. So now when Southampton were in possession, they looked like they could be very dangerous at times when Ward-Prowse would drop deeper outside of the 2 center backs, which would create a lot of space and allow Theo Walcott to come into the half space and Walker Peters advance as a fullback. It also opened up the blind spot of the two holding midfielders of Tottenham. And if we just highlight the midfielders, and now we have our 10 and 9 for Lucas Moura and Lo Celso, it created a big gap in behind the blind spot of the two holding midfielders for one of the two central strikers to then drop deeper and collect the ball, as we see here, and then giving him time and space, and the positional advantage of the Theo Walcott, the narrow midfielder, the narrow wide midfielder, and Walker Peters, the high fullback, with Danny Ings pinning the two central defenders. So this put them in a good position to then go and progress into the final third. So now when Tottenham were in their high block, they started the second half with a little bit more intensity, which saw them press a little bit more, press a bit higher up the field. And as we see Gareth Bale coming in off the wing, pressing the central defender from out to in, forcing the ball into pressure where they have numerical equality. And as we see here, Lo Celso jumping to Armstrong, and Ndombele would jump to then the other pivot to give them man-to-man orientation through the midfield, and Højbjerg would just be shielding in front of the two central defenders and creating a 3 versus 2 between the holding midfielder of Tottenham and the two forwards of Southampton. So now Tottenham in possession in the second half. Again, I felt they were most effective when Son would come between the lines, giving them access to both advanced areas in the half spaces, but this would also release Reguilón to then create the width of the team, and it would create some advantages in relation to their wide midfielders because Reguilón would be higher, so he could then operate in the blind spot of the Southampton midfielders. So this is the analysis, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.